So funny enough, the movie that's actually in this place is actually a movie I haven't even put out a review for yet. You will see my full thoughts on this movie in my catch-up for 2023 that comes out at the very end of this month, but for right now, the movie in question that I'm talking about is the mystery thriller starring Storm Reid titled Missing. And I honestly put this movie in this place because honestly, I had really low expectations for it, and honestly, this is a really great mystery thriller. It has a lot of great plot twists. I thought the acting was really great, and the tension is always there throughout this runtime. Check this one out if you missed it under your radar. It's honestly a hidden gem in the month of January. My honorable mention for this month is Megan, because honestly, as a horror movie fan, this movie was just honestly a lot of fun. I still need to see that unrated cut though. So honestly, I think this movie would have been a way bigger hit if Netflix decided to release it in October, the spooky season, instead of the dead of winter. But nonetheless, my favorite movie that I saw in the month of February is the David Harbour horror comedy titled We Have a Ghost. Yes, I do agree with a lot of people that this movie does try to juggle way too much in its plot points, but honestly, I was invested in every plot point that it was trying to juggle. I thought the character emotions were really good. David Harbour is shockingly amazing as this nonverbal ghost. And yeah, check this one out. If you have a family and just need a really fun movie to watch around the spooky season, check this one out. My honorable mention for this month is the Harley Quinn, A Very Problematic Valentine's Day special. It's so crude, it's so over the top, and it's honestly hilarious. To be honest, my favorite movie that came out in the month of March made me realize that I've been an incredibly dumb horror fan because I have not given this long-running horror franchise a chance until the year 2023. If you couldn't already guess, my favorite movie that came out in the month of March of 2023 was the 6th edition to the Scream franchise, simply titled Scream 6. I absolutely loved the whodunit mystery in this one. I thought the tension was always there. I really enjoyed the meta commentary. I thought it was integrated into the plot really well. And honestly, I think this is the best I've seen Jenna Ortega in a movie. I know there's a lot of drama surrounding this movie with all the actors and stuff, but honestly, I can't wait to watch more of the Scream franchise because this was a great first introduction. My honorable mention for this month is, of course, The Last of Us Season 1. As someone who's never plays the games, this was an absolutely incredible show. As someone who literally went out of his way to meet both Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell at a fan expo the same year this movie came out, I knew at some point that when this movie came out, it was going to be one of my favorites of the year, and thankfully it did not disappoint. My favorite movie that I saw in the month of April was the newest addition to the Evil Dead franchise titled Evil Dead Rise. I honestly thought this movie was just an absolute blast to watch. I loved all the over-the-top gore, I loved the setting of the apartment, and I really enjoyed the fact that it's a mother getting possessed. I thought it had a really good stake in the plot, and since it's a family member getting possessed. My honorable mention for the month of April is Renfield, because this movie is an absolutely hilarious, over-the-top vampire movie that should not have bombed. Definitely check that one out if you haven't seen it. So if we were just doing a standard top 10 best movies of the year list, this movie easily would be at my number one spot. And you might call me a Marvel shill for saying that, but personally I don't care, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was absolutely amazing. This is the kind of movie that I honestly wish I could make. It's got amazing practical effects, CGI where it needs to be, amazing gut-wrenching emotions, and amazing humor, and honestly just a great cast of characters that I'm sad to see go in the current state of the MCU. My honorable mention for this month is Crater, and I'm honestly only putting this on the list because it's a movie that no one can watch anymore because Disney stupidly removed it from their streaming service. It was a very charming sci-fi movie with a really interesting ending. So guys, do I even have to build up what the best movie of this month was? I honestly feel like every single person on the planet knows exactly what the best movie of the month of June was. And of course, if you don't know at this point, which I can't believe you don't, of course that movie is DC's The Flash. No, I'm totally kidding. It's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. An absolute triumph in the animation department, brilliant character work, an amazing new and intimidating villain, and a cliffhanger that ends that makes me incredibly worried on how they're going to execute part 3. If you're a filmmaker like me and need help on how to execute a sequel, this is exactly how you do it. My honorable mention for this month is The Boogeyman, a bland but really fun adaptation of a short story by Stephen King. though July was pretty stacked with how many amazing movies came out through the entirety of that month. But for me personally, my favorite movie that came out in July came out at the very end, which was the A24 horror film titled Talk to Me. And on top of it just being an incredibly inspiring story behind the scenes, two YouTube guys who made really silly videos here on YouTube eventually make their way to the big leagues to be able to make their dream movies. This movie was absolutely terrifying, even though I felt like it had a really basic plot. These two directors did such a good job at making it incredibly interesting, heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching moments, and an ending that I thought was incredibly ballsy. My honorable mentions for this month are Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think you guys know why those are the honorable mentions. So my favorite movie of this month goes to the other best animated movie of the year, that being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. Now, possibly my most controversial take on this entire channel is I actually think I liked TMNT better than Across the Spider-Verse, for a very simple fact is that TMNT actually ends with a full character arc for these characters, while with Across the Spider-Verse we still have to wait for a lot of those things to resolve themselves. But speaking about TMNT, I loved how dirty and raw the animation looked. I loved the emotional moments, and I really did enjoy the previously mentioned character arcs for these turtles, and I really loved the fact about using relative unknown voice actors for the main characters and using big A-list celebrities for the villains. This is a really charming movie, and if you missed this one, you should totally check it out. My honorable mention for this month is Blue Beetle, a very bland but really fun family dynamic in a superhero movie. Honestly, I hope after a lot of you watch this video, you go ahead and watch this specific movie, because since this movie was just unceremoniously dumped onto Hulu, I feel like it fell under a lot of people's radars, which is an absolute shame, because the sci-fi horror movie titled No One Will Save You is an absolute gem. This movie is just a really interesting take on a sci-fi home invasion movie. It's got more emotion and heart than you would ever think. I love the fact that there's no dialogue throughout it, and I've seen this twice now, and even though the ending still absolutely confuses me, the tension and the dread in this movie is still absolutely there. My honorable mention for this month is the teen comedy Bottoms, a great homage to early 2000s comedies. So while everyone during this month was gearing up to go to Five Nights at Freddy's, or finally being able to afford to go see a show for the Eras Tour, I was nicely sitting on my couch watching the amazing Prime Video horror comedy movie titled Totally Killer. Honestly, again, like a lot of these movies on this list, I just had an absolute blast watching this movie. I thought they handled the time travel element really well. It doesn't shove the 80s nostalgia down your throat, it actually makes fun of it. It's hilarious, and the whodunit mystery is also incredibly engaging. If you just have a Halloween party, or honestly just a party in general, this is a perfect movie to turn on. Unfortunately, no honorable mentions for this month. Much like the month of July, November was absolutely stacked with the amount of amazing releases that came out that month. And for me personally, the movie that ended up being in this spot was a movie I didn't think I was going to like at all. But shockingly enough, I thought The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was an absolute great addition to the Hunger Games franchise. I'm really glad that they didn't shy away from the horrific nature of the games. I'm really glad that they kept all that horrific violence. I thought the relationship between Snow and Lucy was incredibly interesting. And even though I do still feel like that third act absolutely drags the pacing down, those first two acts were really, really fun to watch. My honorable mention for this month is Thanksgiving, a terrifying slasher film with some really hard to stomach gory parts. Much like the month of June, do I even have to build up what the best movie of this month was? Again, I feel like everybody already knows at this point. It is the brand new Godzilla movie titled Godzilla -1. An absolute gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching emotional journey. I've described this movie as a World War II drama dealing with PTSD and survivor's guilt that just so happens to have an absolutely terrifying version of Godzilla. This movie is an absolute triumph, and everybody needs to go see this as soon as possible. My honorable mention for this month is Wonka, a really amazing family movie that I want to watch over and over and over again. have 5 dishonorable mentions for the year of 2023, starting with Cocaine Bear, a movie that should have been hilariously over the top and unfortunately just played it incredibly safe and was ultimately a very boring experience. The Flash is an incredibly ugly, terribly written multiverse movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is easily my least favorite movie I saw this year, with terrible character writing and very uninteresting action sequences. Haunted Mansion has some of the worst dialogue I have ever seen in a movie, and again, terrible character writing, and Five Nights at Freddy's as well. As someone who's been a longtime fan of the games ever since the first one came out, this movie was an incredible disappointment.